Yes, January. Um, it- Oops, sorry. So my pen's gone a little bit funny. The Latin janua, meaning a door or a gate, but not any old kind of door or gate. The normal word for a door or gate is a porta, which comes into the modern Romance language as la porta, puerta, la porte. Janua is more a kind of a ceremonial kind of gate. The gate or a doorway then came to mark a special rite of passage. You have the god Janus. Uh, oops, pins pins playing up again. Often comes said in English as Janus or Janus, which is the gatekeeper god. It's the god that looks both ways. It's got two faces: the past from which it has come, the future into which it is going. So the Januarius, the the month, the month of the gate. But in fact, yes, welcome, Ram.
Good evening.
This Janua, it's from the Latin root e, meaning to go. Those of you who've been listening will also know that the Vedic Sanskrit root e means to go. It's the same e, ire, exit, introit, the it. It has an extended form, iya, meaning to go, and it makes a verbal noun, the janua, the passage or the going. So the January is like, it's the month of passage. It's like a symbolic, almost symbolic, ritualistic rite. When we pronounce Janua in Latin, some of you might just be remembering, hang on, is that anything to do with yana in Sanskrit, as in Mahayana? The answer is yes, it is. Because just as the Sanskrit Vedic root e has an extended form ya, from which we get yana, so equally the Latin root e has its extended form ya, from which we get yanua. So in fact, the yana of Mahayana and our first two syllables of January. In fact, etymologically, they're the same. The jana, the going, but in Latin, more specifically, this passage from one state to another, the passing through a gateway from one status to another. So it's my introduction to January on this our first meeting in January. There was one other bit of etymology that Simon raised at our last meeting about poison. It was you who raised it, Simon, wasn't it? About visha, but poison.
I think so, yeah, venom or something, yeah.
That's right. The answer is yes, it is. We have the old Proto-Indo-European root ois, which means to trickle or to ooze. And then it came to mean, in other languages, generally the oozing of something nasty. When we talk about things oozing in English, in fact, it's the same word, by the way. Ois becomes ooze in English, and it becomes visha in Sanskrit, meaning a poison. So visha Sanskrit and visa in Pali, that which oozes, and by extension poison. And yes, it is the same. The s and the r are often interchangeable in Sanskrit as in Latin. We get rubur, robustus, welcome Shalaka. Rubur, heartwood, robustus, made of heartwood, from which you get words like corroborate and robust in English, the rs. Also augur and august, it augurs well, and something is augusta. So equally this ves become ver also in Latin. So the ver and vir, from which you get virus. So virus, and then by an extended root, it became an N. So visha in Sanskrit, virus and venom in Latin, and ooze in English are indeed all from that same root. So thank you for directing me to that, Simon. So in the last group email, I threatened a bit of grammar. So we'll do a little bit of grammar before looking at the text. Are there, by any chance, any of you who've had an opportunity to study any of the grammar in lesson 2, then starting on page 18 in Karen Tilaka? There's one table which initially in this, well, there are two. We'll start with one. There's one grammatical table which I say you should know by heart, with the same meticulousness with which you have already all studied and mastered the table on the middle of page 5, which is, you know, where the paradigm is given dhamma, just the masculine nouns ending in a, and at the bottom of the page you get the neuter nouns ending in an a or which decline almost the same, with a few differences in nominative and accusative. So that's the table you should learn by heart from lesson 1, and the table to be learned by heart in lesson 2 you will find on page 18 of the textbook. That's the feminine nouns ending in a long a. The paradigm is given sala, meaning a hall. In Sanskrit it is shala, and we get the town of Dharamsala or Dharamshala in northern India, where the Dalai Lama has his residence. So the Dharamshala is the hall of the Dharma. This word sala, by the way, via Latin, we have almost the same word in French, la salle. This is one of those words where the H morphed, sorry, where the S, the S or the sh morphed into an H when it came into English. So our English word hall is a derivative of that. In Dutch, it retained the sibilant. So in Dutch, the word zaal, Z-A-A-L, is also that same word. So zaal in Dutch, hall in English, la salle in French, sala, shala, Pali and Sanskrit are the same word. So we'll just look briefly at the declension of these long A. I know grammar can be a little bit boring. Until you just decide internally, just remember, if you regard grammar as boring, you're just looking through this filter of boredom that you've created in your own minds. Everyone here is advanced enough to know that. All you need to do is switch filter and see the joy and wonder and excitement in studying tables of grammar. Okay, I see a slight flicker on some faces. I'll carry on trying gently. So Salah, and it makes its accusative, let's look down the singular, accusative salon. In Sanskrit, it's shala, same as Pali, and the Sanskrit accusative is shalam with a long arm. Remember that Pali can never have a long vowel before the anuswara, that before the final M. That's why it becomes salam in Pali. But it's shalam in Sanskrit. If you look at the genitive, dative, instrumental, and ablative. By the way, have you all got your books here? Our grammar book. One of you only has given. Two of you have given proof that you have it. Very good. So ideally, you should. Oh, good. Three of you now. Have you got the book, Shaleka?
No, I don't have the book. I remember you had mentioned these books. Which books are these? Can you please, say it again?
This book is it's the. I'm going to put it in front of my camera. Oops. It's the new course in reading Pali. It was mentioned in the earlier notices I sent out. What I will do then, I'll just in my next, whatever it is, in my
Gair and Karuna Tillake?
Ger and Karuna Tillaka,
Okay.
if I pronounce it correctly. If I pronounce it correctly, Karuna Tillaka. Is that right, Srinamala?
Yes,
Thank
Karuna
you.
Tilaka.
Okay, listen to Srinamala for the exact pronunciation of it. So it was an Englishman and a Sri Lankan, Ger and Karunatilaka, who composed this book. What I will do, Shalaka, I'll just send out a note in my group email reminding you of this book.
Thank you.
For the reading lessons in it, the text that we read, you don't really need to have the book because I've copied all of those texts and done separate analyses of them. So you only really need the hard copy of the book for the grammar lessons. So you'll see in the table that the genitive, dative, instrumental, ablative, and locative all have one form. The locative has an alternative form, but they all have one form, salaya, or salayam for the locative. In Sanskrit, they're all differentiated, but in Pali, it has become, they've merged in large measure. For instance, in Sanskrit, it would go shala, shalam, shalaya for the instrumental, shalayai for the dative, shalayah for the genitive and ablative, and shalayam for the locative. But there's different forms in Sanskrit, as I say, have become merged, as you see in this table. And also, if you just look at the vocative, feminine nouns ending in a long a make their vocative in e. Some of you may know the mantra Gate, Gate, Parangate, Parasangate, Om Bodhi Swaha. That is the locative because it's the Pradnya Paramita. So it's, yes. Welcome, Francis. So
hello, James.
Hello.
On the plate.
So the nominative form, gone beyond, wisdom gone beyond, would be gata, parangata, parasangata. But this is the vocative, O wisdom. It becomes gate, gate, parangate, parasangate. So in that case, the vocative form is exactly the same in Pali and Sanskrit for the feminines, ending in the long R. In the plural, Francis, we're looking at page 18 in the
Okay, thank you.
the Ger and Karen
Yep.
Tillika book.
Yep.
And I was just telling everyone earlier that although I'm not asking everyone to learn all of the tables thoroughly by heart, nevertheless, the first table on page 18 should be thoroughly learnt and mastered with the same diligence that all of you have already applied to the thorough mastery of the table in the middle of page 5. Incidentally, an encouragement to master the tables on page 5. That's the masculine declension in the middle of the page, and the slightly differing neuter one at the bottom of the page. Is that more than 50%, a little over 50% of all nouns and adjectives in Sanskrit and Pali follow that declension. It's well worth memorizing that one. And you will detect certain patterns. There are different declensions. It's not as if they're all totally different from each other. You will determine patterns running through them. For example, the genitive plural always ends in an am, a nam or an am in Sanskrit, and in a num or in Pali. Locative plurals of whatever declension always end in a su in Sanskrit and Pali. Masculine and feminine accusative singular, for example, they always end in an or an in Sanskrit, and so on. If you just go into soft focus and compare those tables one with another, you will find certain recurring themes. So in the plural, the plural of sala, same for the nominative and accusative, is either salayo or just sala, the same as the nominative singular. In Sanskrit, it's different. It would be shalah, ending with the visarga, which of course the Pali lacks. So just note that there are these two alternative forms in the plural. For our genitive, or genitive and dative, as expected, you see salanam. Now in Sanskrit it would be shalanam. So that is that's the standard form of genitive plural. You'll find in the genitive plurals, you take the last vowel of the stem form, lengthen it if it's not already long, and add nam in Sanskrit, num in Pali. For example, bhikkhu, genitive plural, bhikkhunam. Muni, a sage, genitive plural, muninam. Buddha, genitive plural, buddhanam. And respectively in Sanskrit, those would be bhikshunam, muninam, and buddhanam. So going to the instrumental and ablative, we get salahi, and to the locative, in the halls would be salasu.
James,
That's Duncan, yes.
just a question. How often in the instrumental and ablative, there's one ending is bhi? Is that very rare or is that relatively common?
I don't have the statistics, but the one with an H is a lot more common. You will find the one in the B more frequently in the later literature. in Sanskrit, these forms had the ending in either b or bia. There was always a bh in the Sanskrit, which in the earlier Pali became softened into an h. So a number of these forms, some of them closer to the Sanskrit, they tend to become Sanskritic forms, or forms closer to the Sanskrit, tend to be used a bit more in the later Pali. It was an odd kind of phenomenon, that where you had the earliest scriptures was like which we have in the suttas. There are fairly, for as best we know, and I think we can be reasonably certain that they're a pretty accurate representation of the language as it was naturally spoken. Now, as time went on, and as the use of Sanskrit became more and more frequent in Buddhist circles, and then with the rise of the Mahayana and the use of Sanskrit there, Sanskrit then came to be regarded as a kind of a slightly higher form of the language. So the later writers in Pali had this kind of idea that they were improving their language by using more Sanskritic forms. But that was almost like an artificial improvement, kind of social and cultural thing, that the language was slightly more elevated if they used a more Sanskritic form. For the purposes, imagine most of the people here would be learning Pali for the reading of the just of the suttas, the original scriptures. Then you will see the he form, and you will see a lot less Sanskrit forms. So, in direct answer to your question, in the earlier literature, the he almost exclusively. In the later literature, you will see this be creeping in.
Okay, thanks, James.
Right. So we'll just go through the ones for in the short u. So bhikkhu, in Sanskrit bhikshu, but bhikkhu in Pali. If you compare this table, that's in bhikkhu at the bottom of page 18, if you compare it with the table on page 5, you will see repeating patterns.
Sorry, James. Am I the only one that's not seeing the right screen, or are you sharing some proper screen, or all the pages that you were referring to? I'm only seeing your notes in this.
Right. I wonder how many of you are there who don't actually have a copy of the Gerund
sorry, I don't.
book. Okay. As I just mentioned to Shalaka earlier, when I sent out my original notes was last summer, and I once since, or at least once since then, I did mention these textbooks that you should have. As I mentioned, I think when you were absent a moment ago, for the readings from the lessons, you don't really need to have the book, because I've copied them all and analysed them extensively in the notes that you have. You only really need the book to follow the grammar. But in the group email that I'll send out after this, I will direct you to the book.
Thank you very much.
And it's very easily available. I forget what the current price is, but it's very, very cheap. So I would advise you all to have it. I'm not sure if it's available in online. But anyways, it'll be worth getting a hard copy, as I say, easily available and very, very cheap.
Definitely. Thank you.
James, it was available on Amazon, and I just bought the last copy 5 minutes ago when you told me.
You bought the last copy just before I got it, did you? Okay.
Can I say that I have got a copy via online, as in I can
Oh.
open it online.
Ah,
If you look, and I can't remember where I tracked it down, but it exists so that actually I checked through the units of the readings before the class, because and I can see there's a lot of grammar and vocabulary for each lesson. But that's going to be my route, unless I can lay my hands easily on a copy, you know.
okay. So the one that you found on online is the Gerontillica book, is it?
It is indeed,
Okay,
yes.
fine. What I could, if you do you by any chance have a link to it that you could send me? In which case, if you send me that link, then in my group email, I'll be able to include that link as well
I'll
as a reference to the hard copy.
I'll see what I can do in my own simple way, but I ought to be able to do that.
Right.
Send you the contact for that.
If you could, then I'll be able to send it to
Yep.
the group.
Surely will do.
Right.
Do that. Probably be tomorrow.
Okay,
Yep.
okay, fine. So looking at this word bhikkhu, so if you look back to page 5, there are some of you will know this table on page 5 by heart anyway, so you won't need to look back to it. So bhikkhu, look at the accusative bhikkhu. You just add an M to it. Exactly the same way as stem dhamma, masculine, nominative dhammo, accusative dhammang, or dhammam. So dhammam bhikkhum. There you see the M being added to make the accusative form. For the genitive and dative, there are two forms, bhikkhuno and bhikkhussa. You will find those probably relatively evenly distributed. Bhikkhuno, bhikkhussa, that you'll find them both as very common forms. So if you look at this double SA ending, that reflects that the genitive of dhammassa, bhikkhussa, but the alternative form bhikkhuno. Instrumental and ablative form bhikkhuna, and the alternatives bhikkhussma and bhikkhummha. If you look back to dhamma, you'll see the ablative, and the ablative there has the alternatives dhammasma, dhammamha. There may be those among you who love learning these grammatical tables by heart. If you don't share that odd love, then the important thing is just to recognize it when you see it, or if you see it and you don't quite recognize it, to know where to go to find it. So if you see something to do with bhikkhu and you see, for example, bhikkhummha, you might immediately recognize what it or know what it is. But if you don't, then you say, that is a part of the declension of bhikkhu, and we'll be able to, with that knowledge, to go back to find the declensional table here. And the vocative is the same as the nominative here, just bhikkhu. And in the plural, the standard way of, just as we've seen with the masculines and feminines in and are, just lengthen the vowel for the nominative plural, the ma and sala. Here we see bhikkhu, just bhikkhu singular, bhikkhu plural. And the alternative form of the plural is bhikkhavo. Bhikkhavo is actually closer to the Sanskrit form, which would be bhikshava, bhikshava, so bhikkhavo in Pali. But you'll see both forms equally. Now, for the genitive plural, again, as I mentioned, typically for the genitive plural, the last vowel of the noun will be lengthened and followed by a num, which is exactly what we see here. Nominative singular bhikkhu, genitive plural bhikkhunam. In Sanskrit would be bhikshunam. Instrumental and ablative, bhikkhuhi or bhikkhubhi. And again, that's the same distinction there that Duncan asked about earlier. Much more commonly, we'll see it just with the H. In the later literature, you'll also see it with the BH. The locative plural, bhikkhusu. And the vocative plural, bhikkhu or bhikkave.
James, I had a question.
Yes, please, Shalika.
When we studied Sanskrit, we used to learn tables like Devaha, Devo, Devaha, Prathama, Devam, Devo, Devana, Dvitiya. So is this like very much same parallel of Pali?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite follow how you were learning the tables.
So in Sanskrit, we had learned the table like Devaha, Devo, Devaha, Prathama, Devam, Devo, Devana, Dvitiya, Devena, Devabhyam, Devaihi, Tritiya, and likewise up to
Okay, right, yeah. That's how it's typically done in Sanskrit. There were two things that you may have noticed from the way Shalaka described it. The way that the grammar is set out here, and that you will generally find it set out in grammars written by Western scholars, it tends to follow. We tend to do it in the order that we learnt to do it in Latin. You go through the singular form, then through the plural form. If you're doing it in Sanskrit, you get a dual form as well. Now, the way Shalaka was mentioning it, you actually go across the nominative singular dual plural. Well, we don't have a dual in Pali, but in Sanskrit, nominative singular dual plural, then accusative singular dual plural, then instrumental singular dual plural. So you go across the cases rather than doing the whole of the singular, the whole of the dual, and the whole of the plural. That's just the way it's traditionally done. You may also have heard Shalaka mentioning Pratama, Dvitiya, Tritiya. Western grammarians, and we follow that same system here, or in studying Sanskrit and Pali, tend to use names derived from the Latin, like nominative, accusative, instrumental, dative, ablative, locative. In Sanskrit, they don't give them these names. They just call them first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and in some systems, eighth, which is the vocative. So if you were talking about the kind of instrumental, that's the form in ena, in Sanskrit, you would talk about the tritiya vibhakti, literally the third division, because the nouns are divided into these cases. So the tritiya vibhakti, would be the third case, which we give the name in instrumental to. In Pali, in the native Pali grammarians, the way, for example, Pali would be taught in countries like Sri Lanka, Burma, Thailand, they would talk about Tatya Vibhakti, which is Sanskrit, Tritiya Vibhakti, Sanskrit, in Pali, Tatya Vibhakti, whereas we would say in instrumental. So, thank you for raising that point, Shaleka. It doesn't affect the substance. The words themselves remain the same, of course. That is the language. It's just the order in which they do them and the names in which they give them. The reason I'm following this order here is because it's the way it's set out in this book. Incidentally, the order in which they're set out in Sanskrit, it's been departed from slightly in this book, but there is a very strict order in which these cases have been set out in Sanskrit. Is nominative, accusative, instrumental, dative, genitive, ablative, locative, numbered through from 1 to 7. And that is the order always followed in Sanskrit grammars. And the reason that order is always followed, when you were learning Sanskrit at school as a girl or a young woman, Shalaka, did they explain why that order was followed?
No, I don't think so.
There is actually a very good reason for it. Did you study Sanskrit in school, Ram?
Actually, yes, but not during secondary school, primary school, and very early days. Yes, I know of the same form that Shalaka is mentioning as well. I did too. Yeah.
Okay, right. Did they explain to you why the cases were set out in that order?
Nope.
There is a very precise reason for it. That is the only order in which forms that are identical to each other will always appear next to each other. So, for example, in the neuter accusative, for example, the nominative is always the same as the accusative in the neuter forms. So they are next to each other. In the dual forms, the nominative is always the same as the accusative. They are next to each other. So the criterion is none of these, throughout all of the declensions, throughout the whole of Sanskrit, this is the one order that will invariably apply. And for example, if you look at the order ablative, genitive, locative, or 5th, 6th, and 7th in the traditional Sanskrit grammar numbering, sometimes the ablative is different from the genitive, but in many cases the ablative is the same as the genitive. In most cases, the locative is different from any of the others, but in the dual, the locative is the same as the genitive. Now, this must have created quite a lot of headaches for people who are working out what order. But finally, with this order that in traditional Sanskrit grammar we now do them in, you never get within any column going down the column of singular, dual, plural. You never get two identical forms separated into different parts of the table. Identical forms are always next to each other. And this particular numbering that we use from 1 to 7, or the nominative, accusative, instrumental, dative, ablative, genitive, locative, if you change a little bit of that, you'll completely muck up the system and you'll get identical forms separated. So this is the only one that works to keep them all together. So, for example, if you go through can you decline deva in the dual, Shalaka?
Uh,
As in two of them.
do you mean the second row, Dvitiya?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's
Devaha,
rather the dvivachana, meaning the dual form.
Devo.
Yeah, devau. Can you do it? Do you remember that from your school days?
I remember, but right now I have opened something from Google.
Let's
So
cheat. Devau, devabhyam, devabhyam, devayoh. So don't bother about that too much for the Pali, because the dual has disappeared from Pali. So you see, been through that in the dual, there are only three different forms in the dual, but this is the numbering that keeps them together. Nominative and accusative for both devau. The next three, instrumental, dative, ablative, both the abhyam, devabhyam, 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 and the generative and locative, devayo, devayoh. So again, it keeps the same forms together with that numbering.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, please, Krista.
How does it happen that you've got three possible endings for one case, or like the instrumental and the ablative? How did that come about?
Okay, so let's deal with this. Let's look at the genitive and the dative of
Yeah.
bhikkhu.
Yeah.
Which you can either have bhikkhuno or bhikkhussa.
Yeah.
In
But
Sanskrit, that wouldn't happen, of course. In Sanskrit, what's actually happened is this: you've got the very common assa ending for nouns ending in an a stem, masculine and neuter ending in a short a. In Sanskrit, the genitive form ends in asya, and in Pali that becomes assa. So, associated in the mind is this double SA, something assa, issa, or ussa ending for a genitive. And that just attached itself to bhikkhu.
Okay.
However, in neuters ending in u, in Sanskrit, neuters, for example, the word chakshu, would be the neuter ending would be chakshunaha. So not chakshusya, but chakshunaha. And what happened is that in Pali, both of these endings indiscriminately attach themselves to bhikkhu.
Okay.
This is actually what the underlying reason for all this, rather than I won't give you the details for each one, but the underlying reason is that Pali essentially is just a colloquial form. It was the local spoken form. So you've got the earliest Vedic, and then that developed into classical Sanskrit, which became the educated language. But at the same time, by natural progress, the Prakrits, the colloquial languages along the Ganges Valley developed. And like all colloquial languages, with nobody like Panini to tell them exactly how to do it, you get the different colloquial varieties arising at different times and in different places. So you could say it's slightly more kind of fluffy, almost fluffy and messy in the way these endings occur indiscriminately. And if you show these endings bhikkhuno or bhikkhusa to Panini, you say, no, he says it should be bhikshu, it's a masculine, it should be bhikshu. So there it is. These are just the symptoms of a natural spoken language developing under the natural pressures of change.
Yes, yeah. Okay, thank you.
There's no distinction of meaning. It's just variant forms.
Thank you.
I'm going to do just one more table. We can keep this pretty brief because we've looked at bhikkhu, masculine noun. We'll now look at chakku, which is a neuter noun. Chakku meaning eye. In Sanskrit, it is chakshu. If you go back to page 5 now, you will see that we've got the declension of our masculine dhamma, nominative dhammo, and you'll see how that declines there. You will see that the neuter rupa, nominative form then rupam, apart from variations in the nominative and the accusative, the rest of the declension is identical to dhamma. So the differences are in the nominative, nominative and accusative only. The same applies in almost exactly in between bhikkhu and chakku. So you see bhikkhu, 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 accusative bhikkhum. For chakku, chakku and chakkum can both be indiscriminately used for nominative and accusative. Look at the genitive and dative. Chakkuno, chakkusa, exactly the same as for bhikkhu. Instrumental and ablative. Chakkuna or chakkusma or chakkumha, same as for bhikkhu, and equally the same for the locative. Chakkumhi or chakkusmin, bhikkumi, bhikksusmin, and vocative, same, bhikkhu, chakku. The major distinction then is in the alternative form of the plural. So you can either have chakku like bhikkhu or chakkuni. This ani, uni, ini is typical of the nominative. Of the nominative and accusative neuter plurals. Simon, please.
Yeah. For the vocative plural of bhikkhu, bhikkave, which is incredibly common, like evam eva bhikkave.
Exactly.
This is, I think, from Magadha rather than any other kind of dialect. So does it crop up in other u endings, or is it only for bhikkhu?
Okay. In fact, thank you for reminding me, Simon. I was about to mention that point, but forgot. There is a general rule that the vocative differs from the nominative only in singulars. That rule applies in Sanskrit and Pali. So generally speaking, you need to learn the vocative as a separate case only in the singular. There is, so far as I'm aware, only one exception in the whole of Pali to that rule, and that is in the form bhikkave, which, because it's a very, very commonly used word. Evameva ko bhikkave. You see it the entire time. It is an irregularity, but a very, very common one. So this ave ending, don't apply it to any other nouns ending in u because it won't work. It's just bhikkhu has this irregular form, which, as Simon rightly says, probably derives from an old Magathi form. So where have we got then? We got to the plural chakkunam, instrumental and ablative chakkuhi, identical for bhikkhuhi, and similarly with chakkusu, nominative singular. Sorry, locative plural, which I'm talking about. And for the vocative, then chakku, chakkuni. Here you will see that these forms are exactly the same as the as the nominative. So you have steadfastly sat through 50 minutes of grammar. We can now relax a bit with a bit of real text. So call up the
James is Duncan.
Duncan.
Could I just say it's less painful doing it with you than doing it on our own. So I would encourage you to do a bit of grammar.
Well, that is highly encouraging indeed. I mean, there are quite a lot of things that could be made fun. Going through
I wouldn't go quite that far.
going through declensional tables is, I mean, okay. I got my own little mental quirks. I enjoy it. But anyway, if you tell me that it's more fun, this hugely encourages me.
Well, it's less. I don't say it's more fun. It's less painful.
Okay, sorry, it is less painful. Okay, so painful, but less painful than it might otherwise be. Okay, point taken then, Duncan.
Can I say I agree with that entirely?
Well, I'm getting more and more encouraged. I don't know whether anyone else is going to join. You don't have to, but by the way, we can be entirely truthful with each other. And it's a bit of a painful necessity. We've got to go through the grammar. By the way, these tables in the earlier lessons of the book that we're studying, these tend to contain the more common forms. So the basic, generally speaking, the earlier in the book that a bit of grammar appears, the more likely you are to need it a lot of times. So although this isn't intended to invite you to let your attention wander in the later lessons, thus your attention should be especially sharp in the early ones to these recurring forms. So I'll call up. So I'll just read it out. He. Oh, before I go past the first word, you remember in the grammar we've just been studying that the instrumentals and ablatives in the plural will typically we find ending in a he. So when you see a noun with a he ending, which would be the bi or bia in Sanskrit, you kind of know with a fair degree of certainty that's likely to be an instrumental or an ablative, and sure enough, that's what it is here. So tihi angehi by three parts or attributes, by three attributes or by three characteristics. So in Sanskrit, it would be tribhi angai, tribhirangai. Okay, I won't draw you into the Sanskrit. That might make it a little bit, much as I would love to, might make it a little bit more complex than we need. So tihi angehi, by three attributes or by three parts. This anga means the original meaning was a member, as in a part of the body, or a member as in a component part of a thing. Originally, it was from the meaning of something bendy. In fact, the anga in our English word ankle and the Latin word angle from that thing, because what is a limb originally meant a limb or a part, and a limb is distinguished by being attached to the rest of the body by a joint. So the original idea was a kind of a bendy bit, and so the bendy joint at the bottom of our leg, it's called ankle in English, which exactly reflects this anga, which originally meant kind of a bending part, and can bend at any angle. So the angle of the ankle, or the ankle is a joint that can go at all sorts of ankles. It's no accident. Those two words are from the same root. Bet they didn't teach you that at medical school, did they, Francis? So by three angas, by three members, that's here it can also mean attributes or characteristics. By three, O monks, you very often find that this vocative is placed as the second word in the sentence. In English, we wouldn't say by three, O monks, characteristics, but it's fairly common in Pali. So tihi bhikkave angehi, the O monks, by three characteristics. So it's in the instrumental because it's followed by samanagato, endowed with or possessed of. So a papaniko, a merchant, or more specifically a shopkeeper. Samanagato, this is here we've got the nominative singular form. So the shopkeeper, papaniko, samanagato, endowed with or possessed of, tini angehi, three qualities, three characteristics. Abhabbo is unable to do so. When you see abhabbo is unable, then you expect them to find an infinitive somewhere afterwards, and sure enough, we have the tum, the characteristic ending of the tum. So endowed with, or here would be cursed with, but in possession of three characteristics, O monks. The papaniko is abhabbo, is unable to do what?
James,
Simon.
there are 2 points, if I could. One of them, I was trying to work out samanagato and how it fits together, how it actually works. So if we have, okay, gata, gone, agata, gone or come, anvagata, gone along with, from anuagata. Now, is that kind of taken on the quality of now? So it's actually saying something like sam with that which has gone along with you. So you're kind of carrying your attributes with you. Is that the sense of it?
Well, Simon, the answer is yes. And I would ask, did you work that out of your own head?
Yeah. I was trying to work out how it would. It doesn't seem to fit any other way, does it? I mean, it's
in fact, the reason I asked in particular was because I've given in my explanatory glossary an explanation very similar to the one that you've just given.
Okay.
Had you looked at the explanatory glossary?
No,
On this one. Ah, okay. I will call it up here. Some anu agam. Oh no! What have I just done? Sorry. So you're right. So Samanagato, it's from our well-known root gum, meaning to go. Let's just see the typo there. Agam, to come. And then with the prefix anu, so anu agam means to come along after or to follow along with. And then there's the then with the further here we've got three verbal prefixes. One is very common, two is also very common, three fairly common, up to four is pretty uncommon. But here we've got three, all of which add a certain tone to the word. So this is the explanation that I gave. So the anuagam, to follow along with, to come along following, with the sorry, so many typos here. The prefix suggesting that what has followed has joined you and become part of you. So these are as if there are characteristics that you've developed. They've followed along with you, and now they've actually become part of your character, as it were, part of your regular behavior, part of your neural pathways.
So what's happened then is that the past participle has become acts like a noun. It's like a thing that comes with you.
I tend to think here it is pure past participial adjective, because it's the papaniko who is followed by, or who is of whom these things have become a part. So I regard this as just an ordinary adjectival past participle here. These characteristics have some anuagammed the merchant. So he is some anuagammed by them. It means they have followed him and now become part of him.
Could I also ask, I mean, you may have done something on this as well, but on the abhabbo, that's kind of weird. I mean, to me, it looks as if it's something like a future passive for boo. So it can be done, but it's kind of transferred itself from that which can be done to the agent doing it. So instead of it can't be done, it's he can't do it. Do you see what I mean?
Simon, twice in a row now, twice in a row, you have taken the words out of my mouth on the explanations I was going to give for Samanagato and Abhabbo. Not only twice in a row have you taken the words out of my mouth, but in fact you've got it dead right as well.
Have you put that in the glossary as well,
or? I think I have. I think I have.
It would just teach me to read the glossary, won't it, really?
Yeah, goodness me, look at this, Simon. It is from Bhu, also Bhu. It is from our root Bhu. And although Bhu is an intransitive verb, intransitive verbs can themselves sometimes have future passive participles. So in Sanskrit, bhavya literally means beable, something which is capable of being been, as it were. And therefore it means possible. And you can negate it. Abhavya in Sanskrit, abhava in Pali, means impossible. Now, that was the original meaning of it. A thing would be bhavya or abhavya, capable of being or incapable of being. That, I think, is its normal meaning in Sanskrit. And also, it's one of the two common meanings in Pali. In Pali, bhabha and abhabha when applied to a thing, it means possible, impossible. When applied to a person, it means that person is capable or incapable of doing something. So here, the papaniko is incapable of doing something. But your immediate, well, not intuition, as the results of your study and learning, you correctly detected that it looked like a future passive participle, and you were right.
Teach me to read the notes, won't it now?
Well, the amount of time I've taken compiling this explanatory glossary, which now runs to 158 pages, it is slightly encouraging if I know that occasionally somebody has looked. I know Francis has looked very diligently. I mean, I know that because Francis did query. There was a problem with the search engine. So when Francis raised that query, he said, at least Francis has been trying, which was very encouraging.
Yes. Unfortunately, still, but my wife's working on it to try and find out what the problem is. Yeah.
Yeah, do you know, I've been finding some problems with it as well. I just don't know why it's happened.
Mm.
I've been experimenting a bit today, and kind of sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Mm.
It's one of the things that I tend to reach the limit of my ability there, and fairly quickly actually, and then have to go to the younger generation for assistance. So I shall have the opportunity to do that in a couple of weeks' time, when a member of my younger generation will be here to assist me. So sorry about that. I don't know why it's happened.
So I was going to say, you switch it off and you switch it back on again.
Well, yeah,
That always works.
Normally that's the magic way, and normally it works, but this has been on and off numerous times. I'm afraid it just hasn't worked on this occasion. Get the same. There may be some little bug just embedded in the copy that I have. Anyway, I know it's frustrating, but I'll see what I can do. It's not frustrating. It is an event that occurs, and we choose to be frustrated by it, don't we? So it is an event that has occurred that, in one's unmindful moments, you'd call frustrating. So, it's just come to 10 past 8, so we're a little bit late for our break. So what we'll do now, we'll just have our break of. So are we happy to keep it down to 10 minutes, and then we'll resume at 8:20, if that's okay with you, or 8:20 UK time. So I'll see you all in 10 minutes time then. Resume. Okay. So katum, again, we've got another infinitive here. It's from the root kri. In Sanskrit, it would be kartum, to do. In Pali, that becomes katum. By the way, the form gantum would be identical in Sanskrit and Pali. In fact, if you want to say, I want to go, gantum ichhami would be identical, in fact, in Sanskrit and Pali. So this patim, originally it meant being fat or plump. So if you were in a livestock raising agricultural community, the growing of your wealth would literally be the fattening of your livestock. And so that same analogy, that same imagery, I should say, is used here for growing one's wealth. It's the Sanskrit root actually is and the fattening would be spati. And in Pali becomes party. This spa root, it actually comes into Latin and via Latin into English as spacious and space. So if you're fatter, you take up more space. So these two roots, so our word spaciousness and space, and possibly also our English word fat, come from that old Vedic root spayuk. Before that, from the Proto-Indo-European root, but its meaning is fattening. So he's unable to anadigatam vabhogam adigantum, incapable of adigantum, acquiring anadigatam bhogam, unacquired wealth, or adigatam vabhogam pating gatum, or of fattening, or therefore increasing, growing, expanding, adigatam bhogam, his already acquired wealth. Note the va and the va repeated here. It means or. In English, we wouldn't say or twice. We'd say he's incapable of gaining new wealth or of increasing his already acquired wealth. Or we could say he is incapable either of acquiring new wealth or of increasing his acquired. Say we just use or once, or we could say either or. Both in Sanskrit and Pali, by far you could use va just once, but it's more common to use va twice, and so the va and va there come to a literal translation or, but in English idiomatically we say either or. He's unable to do either one or the other. So I'll just read it through and then take any questions that may arise out of that. Tihi bhikkave angehi samannagato papaniko abhabbo anadhigatam va bhogam adhigantum adhigatam va bhogam pating katum. So do we have any queries or comments remaining on this sentence? And then we can move on.
James, I did not really understand this sentence. The order is very mixed up, it seems, and I really don't know what it means.
Okay. A papaniko, the papaniko, a merchant, abhabbo is incapable, adhigantum of acquiring, anadhigatam bhogam, unacquired wealth. In other words, more wealth than he has already got. Just as a merchant is incapable of acquiring essentially new wealth, literally unacquired wealth. What kind of a merchant? A merchant who is samanagato, in possession of, or could say endowed with, three qualities. So if a merchant has these three characteristics, then he will be incapable of acquiring new wealth or growing the wealth that he already has.
Yeah, I see. Thank you.
Is it making sense now?
Yes.
So if you just, the simplest form of the sentence would be Papaniko abhabo bhogam adhigantum. Papaniko abhabo bhogam abhigantum. The merchant is incapable of acquiring wealth. Then we can build up the sentence Papaniko abhabo anadhigatam bhogam adhigantum. The merchant is incapable of acquiring unacquired wealth. Papaniko abhabo anadhigatam va bhogam adhigantum. Adhigatam va bhogam patinkatum. The merchant is incapable of acquiring either unacquired, not yet acquired wealth, or of growing his already acquired wealth. So the sentence would be complete if you started it at the word papaniko, but the beginning of the sentence, just ignore bhikkhave, that's just the Buddha saying, "Oh monks," that's just inserted. So what kind of a merchant? A papaniko who is samanagato, who has these tihi angehi, who is possessed of these three qualities. So a merchant who has these three characteristics is incapable of earning new wealth or growing his existing wealth. Has it become clearer now?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
I'm glad to hear it. Katamehi, again, that's the instrumental form. It's put in the instrumental form just to reflect the fact that it's in the instrumental form here. So it's samanagato, tihi angehi, katamehi tihi. It could have gone on to say katamehi tihi samanagato, possessed of or in possession of which three? Idha bhikkhave. Idha literally means here, as in this place. Idha. But it's very often means in this respect, on this point. And sometimes it can be just left out of the translation entirely. Sometimes it's used as just as a bit of an infill word. But if we want to give it a meaning, which I think probably could well do here, it means on this point, in this respect, just say here. By the word idha and the English word hither are from the same origin. So Sanskrit is idhara, Pali idha, English hither, but the English word hither has come to mean to this place, but in Sanskrit and Pali it's just here at this place rather than to. Simon.
Long shot, but is it anything to do with I as in going and then da as in putting and placing? So putting it here, like sticking it here. This is what we're talking about. Is that the origin?
You're talking about idha.
Yeah.
I'm afraid, Simon, this one, it's not very often, as you know, that I can tell you outright that it doesn't even deserve a footnote. But sorry, Simon, on this occasion, that was too long a shot. It's kind of primitive word. and that is its form. Besides, I don't think you'd ever find the word "e" used as a prefix on its own. I'm virtually certain that it's not. So we just have to treat this as a primitive standalone word. Having said that, Simon, I should also indicate that you are right if you see a word ending in a da or di, to think, is this from the root da? Because very often it is. For example, samadhi, for example, it's the verbal form is da. It makes a noun, the da changes to a di. When it's a noun, the root is used as a noun at the end of a word. Samadhi. So the verb form, samadha, dha, to put or to place. Adha is to kind of bring towards yourself, to place closer to yourself. And some has the idea of gathering in and bringing it towards yourself. So the samadhi, you can mime this word. Samadhi, you are gathering in and pulling it towards yourself, into the center, gathering in that which is scattered and pulling into the center. Oops. By the way, the root dha normally you'll be seeing this the whole time, so it's worth just departing slightly to remind you. There's the root dha, then meaning to put. Normally, you make a past participle by just adding ta. Like, for example, looking at Sanskrit now, jna, to know. Something is known as jnata. In Pali, that's jnata. Dha, however, departs from that rule. It's slightly irregular because the past participle, in fact, is hitta. So if somebody is well concentrated, it's described as being susamahita. And you often see these in the suttas describing bhavana, describing meditation. Talk about the bhikkhu susamahito, who is well samadhied, who's well literally gathered in. Incidentally, this words for doing and putting sometimes these verbs overlapped in their function in the early stages of the language. So this da meant to do or to put in the Proto-Indo-European. It came to be specialized into the meaning of put in Sanskrit and Pali, but in fact it's the same word that turns up in English as to do. So da and our word do are etymologically the same word. So their meanings have differentiated.
Presumably, the hita is, if something is put there, it's put there for a purpose, and so it's got the meaning of beneficial, as in digaratang hitaya sukhaya.
It's exactly. I'm not quite sure. One can just kind of guess or go into soft focus and see why it means that. So hitta, the original meaning hitta just means put down or placed. Then by extension, it means it's both a noun and an adjective. It means benefit as a noun and beneficial as an adjective. So yes, you're right. The quote, the Buddha taught for the hitaya sukhaya, for the benefit and for the happiness of mankind. And we have there's the very famous work in Sanskrit called the Hitopadesha, which is the Hitta Upadesha. Upadesha, from Desh meaning pointing out, Upadesha would then mean something like advice. So the Hitta Upadesha, which by Sandhi is Hitopadesha, is often translated as friendly advice. So the idea is beneficial advice, friendly advice, advice intended for your good. But it's that same meaning there of hitta, meaning for beneficial. By the way, if any of you did want to strike out and study a bit of secular Sanskrit on your own, the Hitopadesha is a very, very good work to study. It's written in kind of beautifully simple Sanskrit, and it's got just a series of stories, often involving animals. These moral stories involving animals. It's full of lovely little verses. There seems to be a common theme of animal fables, because we find that a number of the stories turning up in Aesop's fables via the Greek, in fact, either are from or have a common origin with many of the animal fables that you find in Sanskrit literature. I think it was with the Sanskrit. I just threw in a lovely little verse from the Hitopadesha, but I think that was with my Sanskrit group. In fact, I think next time round I probably will throw that Sanskrit verse in, because it's such a beautiful little verse, and you can just transpose it simply from Sanskrit into Pali. It says, Udyamena hi karyani siddhyanti namanuratai. It is by effort that things get done and not by the fantasies of the mind. Because nahi suptasya singhasya pravishanti mukhe mriga. For the deer do not walk into the mouth of the sleeping lion. Also, that particular verse's personal anecdote does have a little bit of iconic significance for me, because when I was studying Sanskrit back when I was 21, that was the first verse that I actually got without being helped by a translation. This surge of joy. Wow, I got that verse without being helped by a translation. So in due course, maybe starting that next time around, I shall give it to you in Sanskrit and even invite you to memorize it. By the way, this whole thing of Sanskrit and Pali, yes, you can say that's Sanskrit, that's Pali, but in reality, there's a kind of linguistic continuum between them, and your knowledge of Pali will be, an understanding of Pali will be much enriched by Sanskrit, and vice versa. Don't worry, I won't turn it into a Sanskrit class, but I will throw bits of Sanskrit in as maybe fun and useful. So going back to where we were, Katamehi Tihi, by what three? Here, Intabikave, on this point, Bikave, the Papaniko, the merchant, Pubanha Samayam Nasakacham Kamantang Adhitati. So I've broken this word down in the explanatory glossary. It's the Pubba Anha Samaya, for meaning before or first, 4-day time. In other words, in the forenoon. Pubbanha Samayam Nasakacham Kamantang Aditati. Sakacha, we have in Pali sakkara. The noun is sakkara. The absolute form is sakkacha. In Sanskrit, it would be satkara and satkritya. Now, satkara, sat in the sense of good and right. Satkara, right doing, doing something correctly or rightly. Both in Sanskrit and Pali, doing the right thing, the satkara. Let's give it to you and bring up my. So, satkara in Sanskrit, which, as we would expect, becomes sakkara in Pali, right doing. It's come to mean specifically treating people in the right way, giving them the correct respect that they deserve. In our chant, why can't I remember the name of it? It's the chant where we the Mangala Buddha Sabbe Ita Patittita. These auspicious Buddhas are assembled here. It begins Sambuddho Dipadang Seto, that one. Towards the end of it, these Buddhas are Sakkarehi Pujita, honored with Sakkarehi, with Sakkara, literally right doings. In other words, being treated rightly, therefore being treated with the deserved respect. That's the meaning of Sakkara here. But here, this is just a grammatical variant of the same word. Satkritya, doing correctly. This is now down to the more primitive meaning of the word, just doing it properly. Sakkacham, just properly here. Kammantang aditati. Kammanta, basically his work. In this context, it means his work, the things he's got to do. This kammanta, we have it in the Eightfold Path when we have samma kammanta, which has an interesting history. Quite simple. It's sorry, I'm writing. Let me call up the iPad. Actually, in Sanskrit first. Karma anta becomes karmanta. Karma, action or doing. Anta literally means end. And also, just as in English we can use the word end to mean an objective, the go, to what end are you doing that? It means, what is your objective? What is your aim in doing that? So in Sanskrit, karmanta, literally work end, means the objective of one's work. And it's that, just be pen for a moment. So it's the karmanta that in Pali has become kammanta, literally work end. But in Pali, its meaning has just become more generalized, so not to the objectives or goals of your work, but just to the acts that you do generally. And that's where we get samma kammanta, which is typically translated from the Eightfold Path as right action. Simon, please.
About it meaning the end in the sense of ends and means, etc. Where else does that feature? Because in the Eightfold Path, samma kammanta, I was thinking about this, and it could also mean like the limits of action, the right where you shouldn't push it beyond. So you know what is acceptable action and you know what's unacceptable action. So here it would mean for the businessman, for the shopkeeper, that you go all out to increase your profits, but you know where to stop, so to speak. You know the edge. because I can't think of another place where anta means end in the kind of Kantian sense of the end justifies the means.
Okay, that's very ingenious. I hadn't thought of it in that way. Certainly in Pali, it would be very unusual to use the word anta in that sense. And when the typical word for knowing how far you ought to go in Pali is matanyu, literally measure knowing. You know the measure of what to you've got to do something, but you can do it excessively. For example, typically in the administration of punishment, for example, a punishment might have to be administered, but the just judge or ruler will know the limit. That's matanyu. If that had been intended here in the Eightfold Path, I would have suspected that a phrase like that would have been used. I think that all that's happened here is that in the very early stage of the language, the karmanta meant the ends of what you were aiming for in doing your work, and then it became generalized just to mean your work. I'm open to further learning on this, Simon. I'm fairly sure I'm right about this, but you know what happens as we get older. You get less and less sure about being too right, inviting being shot down. But I think I'm right on that one. But I'll do a little bit more research if there is something in your point. Let me just make a note to do that.
And if I could just slot another quick question in with the times of the day, why is it that the midday seems to have something like a nominalizing suffix thrown in? Because it's majanhika rather than majanha samayam. The other two don't have that, do they?
They don't. The best I can do here, I'm afraid, I know it might sound rather lame, is just, it just does. There are some things where all you can say is it just does. Particularly in Sanskrit tends to be more regular and or orderly in that. But for example, the Buddha teaches the Dhamma that is lovely in the beginning, lovely in the middle, and lovely at the end. It's Dhammande Seti, he teaches the Dhamma. Adi Kalyanam, beginning beautiful, means beautiful in the beginning, the Adi Kalyanam. You would expect then to see Madhya Kalyanam, but it occurs as Madhye Kalyanam. So although it's a compound, that middle member is actually declined. Madhye Kalyanam. And you can sit up and take note there. It ought to be in a stem form, Madhya Kalyanam, but Madhye Kalyanam. And then at the end, and lovely at the end, Pariyosana Kalyanam. Why does it do that? Well, it just does. It's not always an entirely satisfactory explanation, but it's one that we have to make do with. I'm detecting a slight look of skepticism on your face, but so I'll follow that. I don't think there's very much more I can take it. The look of skepticism on your face, Simon, does spur me to look at it further. Please carry on, because sometimes you see I'm impelled to look something up further, and I go, I'm glad I was propelled down that course. I will check it.
The only thing I think of, if it's kind of like turning it into an adjective that people are used to saying, kind of, noontime-ish, midday-ish.
Yeah.
Morning, because the middle of the day is less precise than the sun going down and the sun coming up. But who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, I mean that it could possibly be it could be that, or could just be, as I say, a manner of speaking. There's a lot that we say in English. It probably applies to any language, just a manner of speaking. When you analyze it, it doesn't make sense, but it's just the way the words idiomatically come out. Um, So I'll check that. I don't feel very optimistic about finding an answer, but at least I will satisfy myself before our next meeting that I have tried. Now, this next word, adhipati.
Sorry, James. Couldn't help but asking, but it had nothing to do with what you're going to say. But the previous verse that you were just mentioning and explaining about sakara, meaning good deeds doer.
It's not so much good deeds; it's correct behavior towards a person.
Correct behavior.
In that sense that it's used.
Is the word origin? Does it have a? I know Pali, Sanskrit, Vedic. They have transcended to Greek and other modern languages here. But does it also have anything to do in ancient Egyptian languages, hieroglyphics and stuff? Do they have any commonality at all? Because you know the Saqqara tomb there is in Egypt.
Goodness me, yes, the Saqqara tomb, correct.
And
interesting.
That was named after the ruler Sokar, is what I was just reading about now, and then that also seems to be closely linked to what you're just saying. So that's
yes, yeah. My first reaction to say that's just a happy coincidence there, because I don't think there's any link at all between ancient Egyptian and the Indo-European languages. So I'm virtually certain I'm right in saying that. And in fact, I'm not sure whether the Saqqara, whether in fact that might be an Arabic rather than an ancient Egyptian word. I'm not quite sure.
Okay. The reason I was asking is I'm very intrigued because the hieroglyphics scripts, they do look very similar to the old Tamil scripts, the Brahmi scripts. Yes.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That I didn't know.
Whatsoever. Now I got more intrigued after I see the Saqqara here, Sorry.
In fact, although coming from really distinct languages as languages, as vehicles of speech, we do find in the ancient world, in fact, some of the Devanagari and even the Brahmi letters bear uncanny similarities to the ancient Phoenician script. And there was trading going on from a very early stage. So in fact, the Indians may have got their earlier script actually from the Phoenicians, and the script used for just business records.
I see.
Right,
yeah.
But anyway, some Saqqara, something I hadn't spotted before. I'll follow that one up as well, Ram. Thanks for that.
Thanks, Chips.
So we'll look at this adhikati, and I think we're all familiar with the word adhitthana, often translated as a resolve to do something. And what does this adhitthana actually mean? By the way, adhittati is simply the verb form. Adhittati, he does an adhitthana. So adhittati, adhitthana are just grammatical variants of the same word. In a Dharma discussion within the last week, actually, was with Rob Adkins, whom some of you will know very well. The question is this adhitthana came up, and somebody asked the question, making an adhitthana, making a resolve. Now, this is also highly relevant to what you're currently doing, Francis, on the resolves. When you make an adhitthana, ask this questioner, could it be something, could there be the risk of just some ego-centered desire is what's actually happening? Could that be it? And then I broke the word down further. So adhi, to or on, and the original meaning of adhitthana simply means standing on something, taking a firm stand on something. And I was able to reassure the questioner that in fact, probably not, because the flavor of the word was only in the last few days I was thinking about it in this way. The flavor of the word adhitthana is not that you're desiring something and going after it. The adhitthana would be the same kind of attitude and approach of mind as in a diligent, obedient soldier who's put on sentry duty. That's where you stand. Take your stand there. Whatever happens, you stay there and do your duty there. So it's not about fantasizing about a wish that you want to fulfill. It is the resolution to stand firm in that place, which I think has a very different flavor. I hope it has a very different flavor from kind of creating fantasies of what you want. So I think that's the flavor that the adhitthana has. It's like you've decided in advance you're going to stick it out. Whatever happens, you've taken your stand there. Here we are, here we stand. So here, this Papanicco, one of the things that the Papanicco fails to do is commentum adhittatum, commentum adhittati in its finite verb form. In other words, literally standing upon his work, taking a stand upon it, being there diligently attending to it. This is where I've got to be. This is what I've got to do. So hopefully then that will help us to understand a bit better the flavor of the word adhitthana when we're talking about resolves in our practice. It's the determination that you're going to stick it out, whatever might happen. You stick it out. You stand here until you are relieved from your duty. So, katamehi tihi, what three characteristics then will produce this impoverishing result? Itabikave here, in this respect, amongst the Papanicco, Pubbanha Samayam, in the 4-day, in the 4-day time, Nasakacham Kamantam Adhittati, does not properly stand upon or attend to his work. And the same for the Majhanika Samayam, Nasakacham Kamantam Adhittati, the Sayanha Samayam, Nasakacham Kamantam Adhittati. Imehi ko bhikkhave tihi ange. So imehi is just the instrumental plural of imam, this. Imehi tihi angehi samanagato, endowed with or possessed of these, or imehi, these 3 characteristics. And again, it's more or less a repeat. Samanagato papaniko abhabbo anadhigatam va bhogam adhigantum adhigatam va bhogam patinka gatum. So we'll wind up in a moment. We'll just do a recap of this next time we resume on the G and K series. But before we go, were there any queries arising out of it? And if you can't think of any now, of course, next time round, very welcome. So I hope that the absence of queries is due to complete understanding rather than complete bafflement. But anyway, plenty of time to think about it and raise them later. So, was that your hand? Oh no, sorry, it was my own icon, Christian. Okay, so we are on the 9:15. So what I propose, oops, sorry. So, pressed the wrong button now. So shall we just, we can chant the blessing and bid each other farewell. Okay. Bhavatu sabba mangalang rakhantu sabba devata sabba buddhanubhavena sada suthi bhavantu te. Bhavatu sabba mangalang rakhantu sabba devata sabba dhammanubhavena sada suthi bhavantu te. Bhavatu sabba mangalang rakhantu sabba devata sabba sanghanu bhavena sada suthi bhavantu te. Sadhu, sadhu,
Sadhu.
sadhu. Okay, thank you all for joining me, and hopefully you've all got the message that the numbers are now such we no longer have to divide people into the Tuesday and the Saturday groups. So everyone may come to either or both as they wish. Okay, thank you all. See you next time then.
Thank you, James.
Bye then. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.